Hello, I am Simulated Irk and welcome back to Simulated Irk, Sydney Bus Simulator. And my oh my, what have we got here? We've got a classic OMSI traffic jam. Just lots of buses. Just trying to get through this intersection. I believe this is one of the intersections that was flagged as a problem. Now all of these buses are AI buses. I'm not driving any of them, and the front bus has just stopped, and that's just led to buses just lining up, and they've gone into the intersection, and that's delayed the 247 on the right hand side there. Just trying to switch to an alternative view, and this is the joy of trying to work the cameras in OMSI. And here's an aerial view of that traffic jam. Just one bus messing that up because it's not moving, and that's delayed the next bus and then the next bus and the next bus. And you can see 3 buses on the side street as well trying to get through, and they can't. So if you were wondering where some of the views in the opening credits came from, this is where it came from, and we'll be showing you some more scenes from the opening credits a little bit later on. Now, through the joys of Bus Simulator, you can and things like bus simulators in OMSI, you can actually remove buses. Now, the logical bus to remove would be the first one, because it's the one causing the problem. But also that one that's right in the middle of the intersection would be a good one to move as well. So we've tried that, see what happens here. Oh, that bus just moves up into the space that was created. So those buses all move up by one. So you could remove those buses all day, but I think the one to remove is the one at the start of the queue, that one. So we'll see what happens now, if I can swing the camera around in time. Now, is that bus going to get stuck in exactly the same place and do exactly the same thing? That's exactly what looks like is going to happen. Yeah, I think this was one of the trouble intersections. OMSI is the base program from 2013, still 32-bit, and sometimes you get little glitches like that, and sometimes it's just easier just to remove buses and then get the hell out of Dodge. The 144 is causing some dramas now. And that bus gets exactly to the same point and won't go any further. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. Lots more action to come. Here's a good example of a bus lane, and we're going to do some first person. I think this is when I thought that I wasn't in control of the bus, and I actually was. So to say that this intersection is a trouble point. So Falcon Street, I just need to work out what the intersection is. I think it's, yeah, that's Falcon Street, the cross street. There we go, the AI has got control again, and we're off this. Interior model of the bus isn't too bad. Don't necessarily like the side window, but it is what it is. Now in this general area, you don't need to stop at every single bus stop. If you don't see anybody and no one's pressed the stop bell, you just keep on driving. There's some stops that most of the time you will see somebody waiting at, and you will need to drop people off, but in this general area, you not necessarily. Now I must actually check the draw distance. That was an issue that I read about in the frequently asked questions, or the frequently annoying questions, in the last episode. If this is the first episode that you've watched of Simulator Dirk Sydney Bus Simulator, so we're about to go through the vortex, and we come out the other side. Last week's episode 1, tells you a lot more about this map and about OMSI in general, and about some of the things that can happen that we've already seen on this particular episode, and we will continue to see. But sometimes I find that first person can work better on OMSI with the AI. I very rarely drive buses in OMSI because A, I don't know where I'm going, B, I find it difficult with a keyboard, and I'm not going to hook my wheel up for this, and thirdly, did I mention that I don't know where I'm going? Just made that light there. But often I find driving first person in OMSI is a lot better. I'm not sure what that shaking is. Actually feels like we're floating through the air at the moment. As I mentioned in the last episode. Boy. As I mentioned in the last episode, a lot of the OMSI maps in Europe that I've seen videos of, and the London map that I've featured a series on, they're very flat. And so, they're very flat, so it can avoid issues such as that. Whereas what the creators have done with this map, they haven't tried to avoid the hills that exist. And in this area, in the northern beaches of Sydney, heading in towards Sydney, there are a lot of hills. And it even came to the fact that some people who aren't familiar with the local environment have wondered why there's so many hills. This can't be real, and so we're gonna, and this often happens I notice in London as well. You're just driving down a route, and then all of a sudden the route ends, and that is all she wrote there, and then you come out the other side, and sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you go out onto a road, sometimes it's just a field of green grass or whatever, but this area that this map covers is indeed very hilly. So we're on Military Road, which is a major corridor on the northern beaches from the North Sydney area, heading up towards Mossman, and in the general direction of Spit Junction as well. Much busier than this would indicate. For now at least, in the episodes that I've been recording, I've been filming, or recording I should say, I've been recording during the middle of the day. I did see on another stream that the time that is best with OMSI, that seems to work well with most OMSI apps, is around the midday. It's around the midday time. I must record something like 7 or 8 a.m. to see if there's more traffic. And what I should do, in the previous episode you would have seen the bus depots that are on this map. Mona Vale, Brookvale, North Sydney and the Forest Depot. And they were all full because I was recording at lunchtime basically. So what I'll do, if I remember, in the next batches of recordings that I do, if I record round about the 7 a.m. mark, in theory the bus depot should be empty because the buses should all be out doing their morning peak hour services, and the only buses which may still be there at that point may be in the real world school buses. But that will be interesting to see. And then also to see if there's more traffic at 7 a.m. compared to lunchtime. In reality, there's a lot more cars on the road, and I know that this can all be adjusted in OMSI settings as well, but it'll be keen to see, without me doing anything, if there's more vehicles on the road at 7 a.m. This intersection may indeed be one of the intersections that was mentioned that it can take some time to cycle through, and that's exactly what's happening on this occasion. It can take, in real life, it can take a while to cycle through because it is more complex. one thing that I haven't noticed so far, but then again, I haven't done a super lot of first person in this series, is the interaction between passengers and the driver. I know that happens a lot on the London OMSI map, and it happens a lot on the German map. I can't recall seeing any on this map. I have seen in some of the third person views that we've seen of being outside of the bus. We have seen people get on the buses, but I'm not necessarily sure about. Oh, and those bumps in the road, those noises, those road noises too are real, by the way. Hang on, is he driving on the wrong side of the road, or is that just what that could be? That could also be a oh, okay, so what it is, it's a divider to say don't overtake on those curves, but it is a wide one-way street. So they're going into this intersection. What often can happen on this section of road too is they have what we in Australia known as tidal flows for your peak hours, and so you'll often see in those areas, you'll see overhead signs which indicate if the lane's open or closed. So they have, in the morning peak for instance, more lanes heading to the city, and then we have in the afternoon peak more lanes heading away from the city, but they usually change the lanes after the morning peak hour. Oops, not liking that too much. As we wait for everything to draw in, I'm not running, for anyone who might be wondering, I'm not running a potato. I'm running a system that can run quite well Microsoft Flight Simulator, GTA, etc. Various forms of train simulator. So it's not as if I'm running a potato, even though these, it can appear to quite comical as they draw in. I'm not necessarily running a potato, as you might think. So the bus beside us is at a bus stop, so we're just waiting for that bus to clear the bus stop. It's on the other side, heading in the other direction. You can see one of the metro buses that featured on the last episode, as we're just casually waiting for old mate to cross the road. The top half says building site, the bottom half says nightclub. So there's more metro bus action on the previous episode. They are, but aren't always articulated. So we're coming into, on the left hand side, a T3 transit lane. So depending on the area, sometimes that's a morning peak thing, sometimes that's an afternoon peak thing, just depending on the direction. So buses, taxis, motorcycles, and any car that's got 3 or more people, including the driver, can go in those T3 transit lanes. There's also T2 transit lanes, so that's 2 people, including the driver, plus all the other vehicles that I mentioned. They used to be just transit lanes, but some years ago now they changed it, so in some areas it's a T2, and in other lanes it's a T3. Then you've got, we're just going to go through that red light, obviously. I have heard that being an issue on this map as well, just running red lights. You've got bus lanes, and then you've got bus only lanes. So a bus lane, things like motorcycles can use a bus lane, for instance, taxis, etc. But bus only lanes are only for buses. So that can cause a little confusion. I thought he was going to let old mate out in the 230. Now he's going to let... Nah, the 230's pulling up at the bus stop, which was confusing because he had the right-hand indicator on. But he was stopping at the bus stop, should have had the left-hand indicator on. I would have been confused as hell by that as well, just quietly. So there can be a bit of... If you're not up with the road rules, sometimes that confusion with the bus and transit lanes causes some confusion, especially when it comes into... Oh, and I think it's happened again. What? No, he's got the left-hand indicator on now, so that's weird. No need for the right-hand indicator at all in that situation. Also, what it can do, it can cause some confusion in relation to who can enter a bus lane or a transit lane, and then if you're making a turn, they're usually on the left-hand side of the road to accommodate buses. If you're making a left-hand turn into a side street, when can you actually enter the left-hand lane to make that left-hand turn? And you can enter 100 metres prior to the intersection to make the turn. You don't have to make... We'll use this bus as an example. If the lane that the bus on the left is the bus lane or the transit lane, you can enter the intersection 100 metres beforehand. You're not expected to make the turn into the intersection, into the side street from the middle lane in this case. You can actually enter it 100 metres beforehand. So if we were to go straight ahead, at this point we'd be heading up towards Taronga Zoo, where that bus is going on the right. That bus heading to Taronga Zoo will be at Taronga Zoo sometime during this series. And if we are heading to the left, which is the way that we're heading further up the northern beaches in the general direction of Manly, Brookvale, Warringah, etc. So I mentioned a few minutes ago the tidal lane areas, and this is one example of the tidal lane. I thought he was going to try and turn into the 7-Eleven there, old mate, in the old Merc, but this is an example of a tidal lane area. Some areas have the traffic cones up on the right hand side that can be moved. Others have the concrete lane dividers that can be moved over, which sort of gives you some sort of protection between the two different ways of the traffic. And the newer ones, they have a big machine that comes along and scoops it up and then moves it over to the next zone. That's actually quite interesting to watch. I don't know the actual name of the machine, but if you do a Google search, you'll be able to find it, where the big machine scoops up the movable concrete barrier. Sydney drivers do drive like this, by the way. Scoops up the concrete barrier and then moves it to its new position for the next configuration. The last episode, we featured a bus coming from Manly to Mossman, going up and over the Spit Bridge and Middle Harbour. This is the bus travelling in the opposite direction. It's very steep down this hill. Recommended 35 kilometres an hour, and it's windy, it's steep downhill, and then hopefully shortly we'll come down, crossing Middle Harbour over Spit Bridge, which is an opening bridge, and then steep up the other side to head up towards Manly. So there have been some accidents with heavy vehicles along this area, so there's a couple of different speed cameras, recommended 35 kilometres an hour in some sections around some of the curves. And there's actually, as that sign reminded me, a 30 kilometre an hour speed limit for buses and trucks in that area. Sometimes they do that on really steep downhills. They'll have a separate speed limit just in that area for buses and trucks. So we should be going over shortly Middle Harbour with the opening bridge that opens at specified times for tall boats. So just start to see Middle Harbour on the right hand side, passing the Middle Harbour Cruising Yacht Club. How I know that from Western Sydney, I don't know, but we're just about to cross over the Spit Bridge. There's been various proposals over the years to eliminate this bridge, provide an alternative route. They don't open and close the bridge during peak hours. There's specified times that the bridge actually opens. In order to try and reduce the effect on traffic over the years been various proposals to try and eliminate it, but so far the bridge is still there, and it's actually one of the jokes on both sides of the northern beaches that if you want to cut off the northern beaches from the rest of Sydney, all you have to do is open the Spirit Bridge and keep it open. There's actually quite a few in rural areas opening bridges, but this is the main one. The main one in Sydney. Now, if the boat mast is under 6 meters above, if your boat's mast is under 6 meters, depending on the tides, you can pass the Spit Bridge even when the bridge isn't open. So you got to take tides into consideration. Now, the opening times on weekdays is 10:15 a.m., 11:15 a.m., 1:15 p.m., 2:15 p.m., 8:15 p.m. and 9:15 p.m. during summer only. And weekdays, that was the weekdays time, so that avoids both of the morning peak periods. Weekend public holidays, 8:30 p.m, 10 a.m, 11:30 a.m, 2:30 p.m, 4:30 p.m, 6:30 p.m, 8:30 p.m, and 9:30 p.m. And so that avoids issues. Now with that particular bridge, you don't have to book. You don't have to book. You don't have to phone ahead to say, "Hey, I'm coming. Can you open the bridge?" There's another bridge which is closer to me, which is called the Hexham Bridge, which is on the Hunter River. And there's actually a bridge operator, but they're not on site permanently, so you have to make bookings. So you have to phone or book in advance at least 2 hours ahead for weekdays between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. and at least 6 hours ahead for bridge openings on weekends, public holidays or overnights. And it says to avoid the peak hour road traffic times, because obviously they're probably not going to open the bridge for you at those times. 7 a.m. to 9:30 p.m, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. during the week, and Sundays 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Because that's on the Pacific Highway, which is the major highway between Sydney and Brisbane via the north coast. And so there's a whole heap of days that are in relation to the peak school holiday travel periods, where they won't accept bridge opening bookings at all. Unless it's put into writing 4 weeks beforehand and outside the peak times. but that is subject to change and subject to approval. So we're now heading through some of the more local streets on the northern beaches, and this is what some of the streets off the main roads are like. They're local roads designed to allow people to be able to get off the bus closer to their homes. And we're going into one of those green areas. Are we out the other side? Yes, we are. Like, they're local streets. They're not super narrow like some of the other streets are. This is more like a collector road, and then you have lots of little streets and lots of little roads off this one. And sometimes this is what it feels like. You feel like sometimes if you don't particularly know the route, I thought we were just going to dive straight into the ocean then. Like if you're driving on a long route, say between Sydney, the Sydney CBD and Manly, there are some routes that will only use the main arterial roads, like the military roads, etc. And then there are others that will use a road like military road to a degree, and then they'll drive down these more local suburban roads because they're serving the people that are just drive through the house that shouldn't be on the road. That's fine. And you just feel like you're driving through these little suburban streets in comparison. You know, sometimes you'll see people getting on and off, and sometimes like you'll be in one suburb and then you'll be in another suburb, and you won't necessarily know you're in a different suburb until you see like a corner shop or a service station or something like that that has the name of the suburb in the on the side of the building or whatever, and then you'll realise that you're in a totally different suburb than what you were in before. And it seems when you're in a section like this, it seems like it will take forever. And that's why like the express routes seem so good in comparison. Now obviously if you live on streets such as this, well, you're going to be on this route and be thankful for this route. But if you got nothing to do with this suburb, if you're just say travelling to Manly Shops or Brookvale or Warringah Mall or whatever, you might think, why are we going down these little streets? Sometimes there are trees in the middle of the road like that. But you just seem to be going around these local streets for no reason sometimes. But for anyone living on these local routes, try and take the bus route away. Especially in this sort of area, which is actually happening at the time of recording, March 2021. There's this whole area is actually up for the contracts are up, will be basically up for this area. And the New South Wales government want to privatise this area, change the operator from State Transit / Sydney Buses that have been the government-owned operator for many, many years across a lot of inner Sydney. A lot of that area has been privatised. It's just the northern beaches, this general area, that hasn't been so far. There's a lot of talk locally about the effect of that this privatisation will have on the area in terms of routes and that sort of thing, cutting services, etc. You know, and will running through areas like this still happen, rather than just continuing to focus on the main corridors? And that's what people in this area are concerned about. They're concerned about losing their local route. So instead of having So instead of having a bus stop that runs by their house or pretty close to by their house, they have to walk further to their nearest route. You know, in some cases they may have to walk to the main arterial route to connect with their buses, and for some people do that now so that they can get on a faster service, and then there are others that can't necessarily walk that extra way, the way that the bus routes are designed, so you don't necessarily have to walk too far to get to your bus route. But there is, as I mentioned, a lot of talk about the privatisation of buses in this area, reduction of services and whatnot. So now we're in Balgower Heights. So I just saw that, and yes, trees do overhang roads like this. Now we're flying. But obviously, if you're in this local area and you do use the buses, it is of big concern. Will buses still be running through streets like we have now? That is the question that is on locals' lips at the moment. Another concern of the locals in relation to privatisation and possible reduction of services is also relating to school buses and the like. And are school buses going to be cut? Are services to schools going to be cut? And that's another consideration. Now, it's interesting with this roundabout. It's funny how the bus is just sort of driving over the concrete divider, and some of these roundabouts are actually so small and they're level. This one's got a bit of a lip in the middle of the island, so you can't just drive over the top of it. But there are some buses in this area, and there are some roundabouts in this area where it's really useless to even have a roundabout there for a large bus, because they just drive over the top of it anyway. Smaller roundabouts, sometimes the buses can just drive straight over them and trucks just drive straight over them because they're so small. Larger roundabouts like this one, obviously they're more designed for larger vehicles. Collisions turned off. I thought this might have been the one that just goes around and around the roundabout and just keeps on going. There is something that happens a little bit further on in one of the episodes where the bus gets to a roundabout and then it just goes around and around and around and around and around and around and around. As we head into another section, we're just seemingly going off-road. And now we're back. And now we're on a larger road. Let's see where we're heading. There's lots of little clips that I've put together. So we're still heading in the general direction of Manly, heading to the Northern Beaches. there's so much of this map that I still haven't explored yet, and we'll explore them together. On Tuesdays, you'll have bus simulator type episodes coming out on Tuesdays, alongside trams and trucks. Trains on Thursdays, and flight simulators planes on Fridays. Coming up soon is the introduction of a new bus simulator called The Bus from the company that makes Fern Bus, Coach Simulator and Tourist Bus Simulator. They're now moving into the urban space with urban route buses, such as what we're seeing on the screen now. And later on, sometime this year, we don't have a release date yet, the new version of Bus Simulator 21, will be coming out, based in America, but it also has a recreation of the current German map from Bus Simulator 18 that you'll be able to drive over as well, and including for the first time in that bus series, double-decker buses. So for the first time in Bus Simulator, you'll be able to drive double-decker buses, which will be interesting. Speaking of double-decker buses, I'm also looking into some more OMSI maps for some further OMSI series, including West Country and also Hong Kong. Now, the lane on the left-hand side is a bus lane. That doesn't necessarily mean that the bus has to use the bus lane, but obviously that's what it's designed for. Sometimes if you're about to make a turn away from that particular main street, you might decide not to use the bus lane, but in the vast majority of cases, the bus driver will decide to use the bus lane. So I thought about editing the amount of times that bus went around that roundabout, and then just when I thought, okay, we've seen enough, I've made the point that the bus continually goes around and around the roundabout, well, then it decided suddenly, randomly, just to go straight into the intersection, which it could have done a little bit earlier. I don't know, and I haven't counted, and I'm not going to go back and count how many times that bus just went around and around the roundabout. But there is another time, that wasn't the time that I was thinking about, where I actually had enough time to go ahead and change the camera angle to show the bus going around and around the roundabout at various different angles. So just cruising around. Seem to have been. Hang on. Where are we? Where are we going? Hang on. What the hell? Going through the Star Car Wash? What the hell is going on? OMSI, you've done it again. Going through the BP survey. What is going on? Just through houses, into people's backyards. This is not me driving the bus, by the way. This is the LA driving the bus. What is going on? OMSI, you've done it again. What did I say in the last episode about a old engine and an old chassis with a new body placed on top? That's exactly... Whoa! No idea what's going on right now. And this is why I don't do streams. This is why I edit, even though I am not editing this bit because it's somewhat comical. But this is why I don't do streams. I much prefer to be able to edit things, because, and then all of a sudden it changes back to the road, and all nice and calm with this. That was all the same. That was all the same file. That wasn't me editing files and having one just throw into the other like that. That was just all the one. That was just all the one sequence. But OMSI life, I guess. It's what can happen. And yes, there can be trees just in the middle of parking spaces like that. That's not necessarily a thing that the map creators have just invented. Looks like we're actually coming into Manly itself. There's quite a range of old and new buildings coming up in this general area. And of course the road just ends. You know, how much of this is me, how much of this is the map, how much of this is OMSI itself, very impossible for me to tell. At this point, you know, it's one of the things that, because OMSI's been around and it's got somewhat of a cult following amongst bus gamers, and I know I'm doing it right now, people just go, oh, that's just an OMSI thing. But of course, if this was to happen in Bus Simulator 21, well, that's a totally different kettle of fish. And again, this has all just been the one. This has all just been the one file. And it just seems to be. Just seems to be repeating itself. There's the lady in green that I saw before. So yeah, it just seems to be repeating itself a bit, doesn't it? It's like a lucky dip. You go through that wall of green, and then you don't know where you're going to end up. You know, you just don't know where you're going to end up. Are you going to end up in a going to end up in a green field? Are you going to end up in the ocean? Are you going to end up on a road? But this time it seems to have turned out alright for us. Manly Wharf. That has turned out alright for us. So, Manly Wharf, where the ferry departs for Circular Quay. And there's a little beach to the right here, or the right of where we are now. It'll be on our left when we turn around the corner. That when I was growing up, I actually thought was Manly Beach. Sometimes we'd come here, we'd get the ferry, and then we'd go to the little beach next to the ferry wharf because it was small and it was close to the ferry. It wasn't actually until many years later, as an adult, that I actually found that no, the beach that you can see when you get off the ferry at Manly isn't actually Manly Beach. So on the left is the little beach that I thought was Manly Beach, and this is the or some of the terminal bus stops for Manly Wharf. So I'm not exactly sure where we're heading because we're in first person mode driving as the bus driver. I don't know if where we're actually going. We're clearly not a route service because we haven't stopped to pick anybody up. But who knows where we're going at the moment? I guess sometimes that's the joy of following the animated bus drivers. Where are you going? So going around a roundabout. Near Manly freezes, as I just saw there. Now we get stuck in this roundabout again. I don't know, I don't think it is the same roundabout that we got stuck in before. But we get stuck here for quite some time. I'm going to edit the amount of time that we're actually stuck in this roundabout. But we're stuck in this roundabout for quite some time. So it turns out we were stuck in that roundabout for about 3 minutes. So I'm not sure what it is about this route and getting stuck in roundabouts. Again, I think it's an OMSI thing, but yeah, I did edit some of that roundabout action. Oh no, here's another roundabout. What's going to happen now? This, I think, might have been one of the roundabouts we got stuck in earlier. Let's see what happens. No, we went straight through that one without sitting on that roundabout for 5 minutes. That's awesome. So, Simulator Dirk, why didn't you go to work today? Well, I was feeling a bit dizzy after watching my simulated bus go for a roundabout for 5 minutes. And it just continued to go around and around and around and around, and I got dizzy. So I hope you have enjoyed the action on this episode of Sydney Bus Simulator. I've been Simulator Dirk, you've been wonderful. Don't forget simulatordirkgaming.com or Simulator Dirk on YouTube. Lots of different playlists, lots of different buses, trucks and trams on Tuesdays, trains on Thursdays and planes on Fridays, and a lot more as well. I've been Simulator Dirk, you've been wonderful. Don't forget, stay safe out there and don't go chasing roundabouts and going around and around and around and around and around and around for minutes at a time. See you later, thanks for watching, and we'll return to the northern beaches soon. Bye bye for now.